Welcome back to my tattoo survival guide. In this video, I will be discussing supplies and equipment. This is where the journey hits its first split in the road. The safety stuff is non-negotiable, but with supplies and equipment, there's loads of options. So it really just depends on, well, in my opinion, I want to say that it really depends on the machine that you choose. When I was learning to tattoo, we didn't really have a choice, and it was just coil machines. But now with the advancement of technology, we do have the option to choose a very convenient rotary machine with less of a setup. So that can really change the amount of equipment you need to buy, or even the supplies that you need to buy. In this video, I kind of do a little bit of both. I add the equipment that you would use for a coil machine just because that's what I bought and it's what I still currently have. However, I do tend to use my rotary machine most of the time. I spent so long making this video because on the next page I got really unmotivated. I really hated how it was turning out, and I was really upset about the whole project. I felt like I messed up everything that I started on, so I gave up for a couple of months. But then one of the girls at my shop gave me a kit of gouache paints, and it was my first time using gouache, and I had a lot of fun, so I definitely got back into it. This dragon also took me forever, but it was really fun, and I love the multimedia aspect that I'm going for here. I'm really happy with how this page turned out specifically. And that's not to say that I didn't make a lot of mistakes here. I first wrote the equipment down at the bottom, and I really hated how that looked, so I later blacked it out. And the lines of the paper that I drew at the top, like some of my lines go past my black margin, so I wasn't really happy about that. And then like getting the tail to go behind the tattoo machine that I drew, it was all really difficult, but also I had a good time drawing it, and now when I look back at it, I'm happy with how this page turned out. So it really made this dragon specifically, when I looked back at it, it made me want to continue. So that is what I did. My supply list, I split it into 3 categories, starting with liquids, distilled water, alcohol, green soap, maticide, ink, and stencil stuff. And then the second category is solids, so that would be ink caps, popsicle sticks, needles, skin markers, razors, cartridges, tubes, and gloves. And then there's paper/plastic, which is napkins, bibs, Scentsy wrap, clipcord covers, plastic wraps, medical tape, Sanoderm, and stencil paper. And then in the equipment category, of course, I put coil machines and like anything that you would need for a coil machine. However, now I gravitate more towards my rotary. So for the equipment category, I have rotary machines, coil machine, RCA, clip cords, light, a power supply, battery, a tray, chair, sharps container, a printer, an armrest, a stencil printer, and a waste basket. So for the stencil printer, I feel like for someone who's just starting out, you might not need a stencil printer, just because I think hand drawing your stencils onto the carbon paper is really great practice for line work, and it builds a muscle memory so that when you do get into the tattoo or your first couple tattoos, you remember drawing it the first time and like making it a stencil, so it kind of comes easier when you're doing the tattoo. Now for someone who's a little bit more experienced, that's just tedious. I think it's great practice when you're beginning, but it can get really, really tedious. So a good stencil machine is everything, especially for those tiny details and bigger pieces, like doing like a quarter sleeve to full sleeve, even like snakes and dragons with those tiny scales. It's great. It is so great to have a stencil machine, but it is not necessary. It's great to have one, and it's such a convenience, but it doesn't mean that you need to buy one right away. I really wanted a bullet journal effect for these pages. However, being a tattoo artist or just like someone who is neurodivergent, I don't think I have it in me to be a bullet journalist. That's the goal for this, because I love watching the bullet journal videos. Oh, this is the spread that I absolutely hated. I hate the Eat the Rich drawing. I'm not happy with the flying pigs and like the random colors that I put on this. I do eventually fix it, but it was not the goal. And I'm thinking for the next couple sections, because I do really want to get into the bullet journal aesthetic. It's what I'm aiming for, and I feel like I'm slowly getting there. The next section is all about machines, so if you want to stay tuned for that video. I don't know when it'll come out because I really do take my time with all of this, but I'm going to be going into the difference between rotary and coils and all of that in the next couple of pages. But for this one, I just decided to gouache over everything. I thought the gouache was going to be more like watercolor, and it ended up being very opaque, which really worked out for what I needed, but I wasn't expecting it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And the fact that I could layer things on top of the gouache was just so amazing. I layered both color pencil, alcohol markers, and I want to say like Posca and pens over this, and it just all went so smooth over the gouache base. It really made me want to definitely get more gouache. So, but not getting into the actual money here, right? Let's not be afraid to talk about money. You shouldn't be afraid to talk about money with your employers or with your fellow coworkers. Money makes the world go round, right? So we want to make sure that we're comfortable talking about it. And I want to say for the first like supply run that you'll make as an artist, it's around $530. This is give or take. I rounded some numbers, and I took some of the cheapest numbers that I could find to put together on this. Of course, like I said, supplies and equipment can vary from person to person depending on where you like to buy your supplies or what equipment you like to get. I want to gravitate more in the future towards getting more sustainable products, but right now it's just not in the budget because for some reason anything sustainable is a lot more pricey, and for the job that we do, everything is disposable, so sometimes it's just not worth it if we're gonna throw it away. Get sustainability at home because you can make it last, but like sometimes with tattooing, it doesn't make sense for the amount of money that we spend on it. So here I split the liquids into distilled water. I want to say it's like $1 a gallon. Alcohol is $25 a gallon. Green soap is around $25 a gallon. These prices do fluctuate. When I made this and I checked on Amazon, this is what were the prices, but they do fluctuate. Meticide is about $57 a gallon. Ink can be like $30 to $200, again depending on where you get it. For me, I get like a large bottle of dynamic black ink, and that's around $30. But if I want to get a kit of, I prefer Eternal Colors. If I want to get a kit of Eternal Colors, it's like $150 to $200 for a set of 6. So that can be pretty pricey, but it's definitely worth it to get good ink that you know the ingredients to. There's stencil stuff. The stencil stuff that I like to buy is from my local tattoo supply. It's very sticky and it allows my tattoos to last, or the stencils to last forever. So that is usually around $10 to $15. And then the tattoo glide is $30. I invest in Inkies. It works so well. I enjoy it so much more than using like A&D or Aquaphor, just because the petroleum can just be so thick and it clogs needles. So I don't. When we get into the science of tattooing, I'll talk about more why I do not like petroleum. But yeah, so then for the solids, I have ink caps, which are around $10 for 1,000, popsicle sticks, which are like $15, razors, $20, cartridges, $30, skid markers, $50. That's on the pricier end. You can get skin markers for a lot cheaper. I think before I used to buy the pre-sterilized ones, and they were really expensive, and I found that I found a lot cheaper ones, and then I also bought a sustainable kit of skin markers, so now I actually don't even buy those anymore. But if you're going to start, that's somewhere to start. Then gloves are around like $80, and that's on the cheaper end. I mean, I do buy for a whole shop now, so I want to say I buy cases, and a case of gloves is $150. So paper, plastic, we have napkins, which are around $10, bibs, which are around $15, Scentsy wrap $20, clipcord covers $10, plastic wraps $5, medical tape $12, Sanoderm $30, and stencil paper around $40 to $50. All of these expenses are usually monthly except the liquids. I want to say when you buy a gallon of anything, it should last you a pretty long time. And I like to bulk buy, so like I'll buy 4 gallons of Meticide and it ends up being cheaper for me and they last a lot longer. But again, I am buying for a shop, so a lot of these expenses for me personally are monthly or triple because I'm buying for 10 artists. So I personally spend around $1,500 a month on supplies, but for an individual artist, you could spend anywhere from $300 to $500 a month, and I think that's pretty good. As far as especially if you're like pricing correctly, I think that it'll make sense. I also put on here like the tattoo supply that I like to go to that aren't Amazon. So I love buying from Kingpin Tattoo for general things, Painful Pleasures for general thing, Razorblade for general, Ultimate Tattoo for general, INKclaw specifically for needles, Dynamic for ink, Eternal for ink, Bishop for machines, FK irons for machines, Blood Money irons for machines, and KWADRONs for needles. And then I do put a special mention in here for Good Judy, which is good for the world, but it is expensive. It's all sustainable products, and which is what I'm trying to get my shop to move towards slowly. But of course, we've only been open for a year, so hopefully eventually we'll be fully stocked on sustainable products. I also add in here my favorite machines. Again, this is like personal preference. So me personally, I've been tattooing for 6 years and I've only used a handful of machines because I'm not sitting here spending exuberant amounts on machines. I like to stick to one machine until I don't need it, or like if there's a problem with it, then I'll switch. But I have used friends' machines, and these are my ranked ones, right? So right now I'm using the Flux. It's a rotary machine. It's amazing and it hasn't given me any problems. I use it for lining, color, shading, everything. It just works so well. It's so dynamic, and it's definitely on the top for me. The second would be in my Blood Money Irons coil. It's a liner. It's so strong. It's such a good, powerful liner, and it never gives me issues. It's not hard to tune, and I only ever have to like tune it once, or like I've tuned it like maybe twice, and it stayed really good. Where like with other coils, sometimes when I plug it in, it like will stutter multiple times, and I have to like mess with it. With my Blood Money Irons machine, I haven't had to do that much. There's the Zion, which is from FK Irons, and that one's really good. I just don't like having a cord on my machines anymore. After switching to a battery-powered machine, the freedom that I had to move my machine was amazing, and I don't think I'm going to go back to cords in a long time, and I probably will not buy a battery for my Zion. So that one's retired, but it was really good. Honestly, it rivaled the Flux. The only reason that it's third is because of because I don't want to buy a battery for it. And then there's the Dragon Hawk Mast, which was super affordable. I think I bought it for $100 when I was like 2 to 3 years into tattooing, and it was great. I used it for lining, shading, color. It wasn't as high performing as like, let's say, a Flux or a Zion or even the coils are, but of course it did only cost me $100, and it was really good for the 3 years that I used it. I want to say it was reliable. And again, the equipment doesn't make the artist. Like I could probably still draw with like crayons, but having good equipment does level you up just a little bit. So there are loads of cheap, reliable machines, but spending good money on a tattoo machine is definitely worth it. I could just tell the difference. You don't have to work so hard. I feel like with my mask, I was working really hard to get the good lines that I had. And of course, that made me a better artist, because when I did get the Flux, I was able to, I had all the muscle memory from working hard with the mask, if that makes sense. Like it just felt like I had a new air behind my back. I don't know how to explain it. It's definitely a level up. I don't know how to explain it. Definitely worth it though. And then this is kind of like the breakdown on equipment. Amazon is okay for equipment just because it can get really expensive out there, especially on these tattoo supply websites. They're charging like $1,000 for a chair, which of course, if you're going to be using the chair for the next 10 years, it's definitely worth it. I just don't think I'm there yet. I've had the same $400 chair for the last 3 years, and it's been working fine. I haven't had any issues. But yeah, with time, I think I'll definitely invest in some more expensive equipment, but it's not where you have to start. I think you could get a nice tattoo chair for around $200 to $300, a tray for around $60, an armrest for about $60. You can find cheaper armrests, but they break really easy. You do have to think about the fact that you're putting people's full weight on these things as well as your weight when you lean on them to tattoo them. So like a $20 armrest is probably going to sink to the floor the first time you put someone's arm on it, but a $60 armrest is going to be okay, I believe. A stencil printer, which is around $150. A tattoo machine can be from $100 to $1,000 or $1,500. It really depends on the tattoo machine that you get. Power supply plus the cords is around $100 if you're going to be going with the cord machine. I personally, like I said, I use batteries now. There's a light, which is $150, a sharps container, which is $25, and you can get this at Walgreens. And then you do need to contact someone to dispose of your medical waste. We have someone to come to the shop to dispose of our medical waste, but I believe if you ask Walgreens, they can dispose of it properly, and that being sharps containers. A waste basket, which is around $25, a toolbox, which is around $150. That's how much I spent on a toolbox, but technically you don't really need a toolbox. It's just part of the tattoo aesthetic. I think because our mentors did it, we did it. But I've used the dresser before, and it works just fine as long as you're tattooing on as long as you're setting up on stainless steel and the place where you're storing your equipment is sanitized. I don't think it's bad to use something other than a toolbox. Squeeze bottles are around $15, and this is estimated around $1,035. So this is just somewhere where you would begin. If you're going to a tattoo shop, which I recommend you do to get a mentorship, you won't have to spend on a chair or an armrest or a stencil printer. All of these things are usually things that tattoo shops supply. At least I do. I like to supply all of my artists with things, with most of the stuff. I think the only thing that they've supplied themselves with is lights if they wanted to be particular and get like a heart-shaped light, which definitely cute, and it's definitely something personal that you can add to your tattoo station. These prices are estimates for some of the most affordable options on the market. Higher quality equipment is suggested, but not always feasible. And that's something that I put on this little thing that you're watching me write down on my iPad. So as far as like pricing tattoos, if you're following along with something as simple as like a YouTube video like this, you probably shouldn't be pricing anyone's tattoos. But this is just a suggestion. When I started off tattooing, I did at least 20 to 50 tattoos for free, just because even if I knew what I was doing and I had a mentor and I was practicing on practice skin and pumpkins and oranges and grapefruit and everything I could get my hands on, it didn't mean I knew how to tattoo skin. Skin is so different from most of the materials that you try. I've never tried a silicone fake skin that felt like skin. I've never tattooed any fruit or vegetable that felt like skin. They don't compare. So I definitely I suggest that I make a lot of my apprentices give tattoos for free for the first 20 tattoos ish. Like they do a certain amount of line work, and then they do a certain amount of shading and a certain amount of color, and then I allow them to start tattooing for money once they know what they're doing with that stuff on skin. So side note, in my experience, money didn't start coming in until I was 3 to 4 years in. Even when money began to flow a bit more, I sacrificed my artistic growth trying to feed my family. I sacrificed my art for money, but it was worth it in my case because I was able to support my son and start saving for my own shop. I didn't begin to focus and develop my own personal style until 5 to 6 years into my career. The great thing about my journey now is that I can now focus on what I love and also be semi-financially stable. This isn't the case for everybody. I love that my apprentices get to come in and focus on their art and their style and their own personal growth from the jump. I think that's amazing, and it's what everyone deserves. But sometimes when you're starting a career, you have a family to think about, and if that's the case, then I did a lot of parentheses Pinterest tattoos. I did a lot of infinity signs and the works, and it was worth it for me. It was so worth it for me, and I think it's still worth it for me. I love tattooing Pinterest tattoos because, you know what, it fills my bank, one, and two, these people are expressing themselves however they want to. It's permanent for their bodies. Who are you or anyone to judge, is all I have to say. But yeah, thank you for watching my video, and stay tuned for the next one, which should be about machines. Thank you so much.